Hi there and welcome to Crafting for Beginners, and in this video I'm going to move on from our cable casting on, which I have done in a previous video, to show you how to continue with a knit stitch to make this piece of work grow. So this is the foundation stage that I have done, and it is 10 stitches of a cable cast on stitching method. Now with regards to actual knitting, I am going to use a different colour wool just so as you can see how the pattern forms. I think with a contrast it may well help. So after you've cast on however many stitches your knitting pattern requires, and I would suggest that if you are very new to knitting that you do start and practice just with going backwards and forwards on your needles. It really does, practice makes perfect. Now your first stitch that you'll be working on is on your left hand needle, and what you would do is take your right hand needle, and this is a knit stitch, a plain stitch. Often in patterns it's referred to with a K. So you would have, for example, this pattern would be K10, which would be knit 10. That just means you're going to knit 10 stitches. So we take our right hand needle and we pop it through as if we were going to cast on the ordinary knitting method. So we pop it through underneath our left hand needle. We then take our wool and we pop it through over the top of our right hand needle, pull it through, but instead of putting it back on the left hand needle when we're casting on, we would just slip the stitch off the end. So now you have one stitch on your right hand needle and your 9 remaining stitches on your left hand needle. So to work the second stitch, you pop your right hand needle through the stitch underneath your left hand needle, forming the cross pattern. You then take your right hand wool, pop it round the right needle, bringing back the right hand needle and pulling it through and off the end. We've now knitted 2 knit stitches, and we continue popping through the needle, forming the cross pattern, popping your wool around your right hand needle, pulling it back and pulling through your work. Again, through your 4th stitch, pop your needle through, wind your wool around your right hand needle, pulling back your right hand needle and then slipping that off. Going through to your 5th stitch, round the bottom right hand needle and through. Going through your 6th stitch, popping your wool round your right hand needle, pulling the stitch through and slipping that off the needle. On your 7th stitch, popping it through. On your 8th stitch, popping it through and continuing through to your last stitch. Okay, so congratulations, you have now completed 1 row of knit stitch. Now the way we move on to the next row is that we swap hands. So we would take the right hand needle and pop it into our left hand, and we would take our left hand needle, popping it into our right hand. So here we go again with the long length of wool at the beginning of this row, and we start to K10, knit 10 stitches. So we pop the needle through and underneath the left hand needle, around the top and bring the work through and slip the stitch off the end. Through the work underneath the left hand needle, forming that cross, popping the wool round, pulling it through and completing our second stitch. Round again, through we go. And again, underneath this left hand needle, forming that cross pattern, pop your wool round and pull it through. Pulling your needle through, forming that cross pattern, popping your needle round, pulling your right hand needle back and pulling it through. Around, through, and then releasing that bottom of that stitch off there. Through, round, and away we go. And the last 3 stitches for our knit 10, and then we have completed our second row of stitching. So pop that over into your right hand, and what you will see is that the reason I have done this is that you can see the casting on, and then you get this shape when you do your normal knit pattern, and as you can see they're very different stitches. Okay, so the point of this is just to show you how a knit stitch forms under and over like that. Okay, under and over like that, and you're stitching at the bottom for your cable casting on the method I use for this chunky wool gives you that real strong edge for a scarf, for example. And I would continue practicing this for some time so you get the hang of how you work. People call this type of work tension. You may find that you knit very tightly, or you may find that you knit very loosely, but we'll go into that at the next video stage. So I'm going to do one more row, so starting with all of the stitches on the left hand needle. We then go into the first stitch underneath, put our wool round, pulling it through and off the end, popping it through, forming the cross, going round and off the end, through, round and off the end. Off the end, stitch number 5, forming the cross, popping our wool round, pulling it back and pulling it through. And this will now complete our 3rd row of knitting 10 stitches, or K10 as it would say on your pattern. Okay, now take that wool and pop it into your right hand, and as you will see here, you are forming this under over pattern that's being created. You can really see that the knitting is now starting to grow and form a really good straight pattern, and that is your knit pattern on top of your cable cast on. I would continue maybe to practice with 10 rows of 10 stitches and practice again until you can find that your work is good, you haven't dropped any stitches for example, and you're knitting in a consistent and average way that gives you nice neat knitting. Okay, I'll see you in the next one.